Thanks for that, Steve. And thank you for joining me for this webinar today. So we've got a 30-minute time slot and I've got about 15 minutes worth of content to share with you. So we've got plenty of time for questions at the end. So do fill in your questions as you think of them and I will look at them at the end. So why soft skills for the Agile project manager? Well, to help us answer that, let's first look at the traditional project manager role and see how that fits into Agile. So here's our project manager, looking very contented here with his beloved project plan. And I think that the text you can see here probably is a fair definition of the project management role. So the planning, the organising and the managing of the resources and tasks required to complete the project to scope, time and budget. Yeah, fair enough. At first glance, that does look general enough to apply in any environment. But, hang on a minute. I'm already feeling a bit troubled at the idea of our project manager organising and managing our development team resource, because in Agile, the development team is a self-organising team. They are not told what to do by the project manager, or anybody else for that matter. So nobody micromanages how they actually do the development work. So most of that planning and organising and managing kind of doesn't need to be done by the project manager anymore. So let's see what else a traditional project manager does and whether that changes with Agile. So firstly, of course, project planning. That's obviously a core skill for a traditional project manager and all of the reporting that goes along with that. As we just mentioned, with Agile, I'm afraid our project manager isn't going to be doing too much detailed project planning. And that's in keeping with the Agile Manifesto, which states that we value responding to change over and above following a plan. So we'll do a bit of release planning, of course, and the development team do just enough planning for those upcoming sprints, but we no longer create those enormous 18-month project plans depicted by those mammoth Gantt charts that are so typical of project management environments. And the next three things on my list here, I'm actually going to assign to our Agile customer or our product owner, the lovely lady in red here, because she's the one who interfaces with the stakeholders. She's the one who's looking at the business value of the product and trying to work out how we can extract maximum value for the organisation from our product. She's the one who makes those business-focused trade-offs around what features we do or don't build in our product. And what about project governance? So that set of policies and regulations and processes and procedures. Well, this again is where I'm going to quote the Agile Manifesto in that we value individuals and interactions over and above processes and tools. So it's not to say that we don't need processes and tools, of course we do, but we value individuals and interactions over and above them. So governance is a bit less of a primary focus in an Agile environment. But these last three, issue resolution and escalation, problem solving and team building, yes, I'm going to keep those on the list for our Agile project manager. So what we can see is that the project manager role evolves into something a bit different in an Agile environment. The bits that we are left with are much more the kind of the facilitation side of things rather than the hardcore planning and analysis. And I'm even going to add coaching and change management to the list here, and I will talk a bit more about those in a minute. And also remember this Agile Principle here. I say remember this Agile Principle, that depends whether you are familiar with the Agile Principle, but there are 12 principles of Agile. And this particular one is interesting because it says that we build projects around motivated individuals by giving them the environment and the support that they need. Now, it doesn't say who should ensure that the environment is right and the support is there. So I'm going to be bold and I'm going to give that responsibility to our Agile project manager. So I've just added another thing to the list here. But the point I'm trying to make is that this is quite a different list to the list of responsibilities that we saw before for a traditional project manager. And I'm kind of overgeneralizing a little bit here, but really just to get the point across to you quickly. But this is a different skill set potentially, and that may or may not suit the strengths and the characteristics of the individual doing that traditional project management role who finds themselves needing to evolve into an agile environment. But this is where the soft skills come in. Training on soft skills, developing those softer skills can really help you build and improve to make you more effective in these kinds of areas. So let's just go through this list here one at a time to see what soft skills are involved, starting with issue resolution and escalation here at the top of the list. So this is where the Agile project manager removes those roadblocks which are stopping the development team from being able to crack on with the job. And I don't mean that he's dealing with the silly little things. He's not the errand boy for the team. These are real impediments which are outside of the team's control that they can't sort out themselves. So he's going to need to know how things get done in the organisation and kind of whose door to knock on for help in removing that impediment. So our project manager is going to need to be a really good networker. He's going to need to make connections with influential people throughout the organisation. He's going to need to know who's who. And he's going to need to have some negotiation skills in order to resolve some of these issues. And maybe he needs to be able to arbitrate disputes. For example, maybe somebody senior in the organisation wants to pinch one of the developers from the development team to work on a different project. Now, our project manager might not have the authority to overrule that, but if he can negotiate, if he can use some diplomacy and use some empathy, he can potentially avert that situation. So he's going to need excellent listening skills, to really be able to listen actively so he can be empathic and truly understand the different points of view, and that's going to make a big difference when it comes to resolving these potential disputes. And luckily, these skills are skills which can be learned. Of course, some people do have a more natural affinity for them than others, but they are skills that can be learned. Next on my list is problem solving. When I say problem solving, what I really mean is helping the team to solve their own problems. So our project manager, Agile or otherwise, isn't going to have the answer to every problem which the team encounters. So he's going to need to have tools in his tool bag to help unlock the team's own creativity and finding their own solutions to their problems. And there's all sorts of different strategies that you could use to help the team find their own solutions. You might do this through some creative questioning. I've got an example here. You could throw in one of these bizarre questions to get the team to look at the problem from a different angle. It's always interesting to throw in the odd question like this to really change the energy in the room, to shake things up a bit if we've got a bit stuck in our thinking, if we've hit a brick wall. Now, I've actually just seen a couple of questions coming in on the webinar console. That's great. Keep them coming in. So put the questions in when you think of them, and I will have a look at the end of our webinar. Anyway, when you're helping the team to problem solve, there's all sorts of different tactics you could employ. You could run a brainstorming session. You could run an activity to ensure that you've got to the root cause of the problem, so 5 times why. You could try the 6 thinking hats activity to try and find a solution. But the point is, these are strategies that you can learn, and I do actually take you through them in my Soft Skills for Scrum Masters course. Next on my list is team building, because in Agile we need every member of the development team to be jointly accountable for the work performed, and we need them to have that kind of we're all in this together attitude. So our Agile project manager needs to understand really what makes a team tick and to nurture and develop the team as a unique and living thing, and he needs to understand that individual team members are different, and it's going to take a bit of time and help for those individuals to really bond and form a good working relationship, to form a good team. And he knows that a good team has fun, that they communicate freely, that they create a safe environment for being able to ask questions and potentially show weaknesses and ask for help. And also a good team has agreed standards of behaviour, and a good team holds each other accountable for meeting those agreed standards. And again, you got it, team building is a skill, it's a soft skill that can be learned. Okay, so what about coaching? Now, you hear a lot about coaching in Agile. You hear about Agile coaches. You hear that the Scrum Master coaches the team in their Agile practices. So again, what a fantastic skill for our Agile project manager to add to his toolkit. So yes, our Agile project manager can coach the team members in the practicalities of being Agile. For example, if you're working with a customer who isn't familiar with an Agile environment, then that customer needs to understand that the customer must be engaged throughout the entire project. So Agile states that the business people and the developers must work together daily. It's not just a case that the customer shows their face at the beginning and the end of the project. So coaching is required to make sure people understand what is expected of them. And our project manager can also coach and promote good Agile working practices throughout the organisation in terms of how we track work, how we size tasks to be done, etc. So yes, all of that would, of course, count as coaching. But even more usefully, we can coach people to transform fixed mindsets, on the right-hand side here, into growth mindsets. And the fixed mindsets are the ones which say, oh, that's too difficult, or no, I can't do that, that's just not my thing. Whereas a growth mindset accepts that challenges help us grow and that some effort might be required, but ultimately if we do try a bit harder, we can learn new stuff and we can solve our problems. And because Agile acts as kind of like a catalyst for improvement and change in an organisation, these growth mindsets are absolutely essential in being able to achieve that. So we coach to cultivate these growth mindsets, not only within our development team, but also throughout the whole organisation to make those big organisational changes. And at the heart of coaching lies good questioning skills and good listening skills, but being aware of how much more useful an open question is rather than a closed question. So this is an example of an open question here, because an open question allows for much longer, more thought out responses which generate thinking and reflection in the person that you're asking, so it gives a much fuller and more accurate picture of what's going on. So this is an open question. You ask, how is the new system working out? And you get quite a complete response. Well, I think it's going to be okay, blah, blah, blah. Whereas if you had said, is the new system working out okay? That's a closed question. It's just a yes or no answer. And you'd probably just get a, yes, it's fine type of answer. You don't get that full, reflected, thought out response. So you're not going to get the full picture of what's going on. And of course, once you've asked a good question, you need to be ready to listen properly to the answer. So you don't interrupt, you don't hurry the speaker. And, certainly in sensitive situations where you are coaching for those growth mindsets, you need to check that you understand properly what the speaker is saying. You need to defer judgment until they have finished speaking. And also listen actively rather than wondering what you are going to say in response. I know I'm guilty of this. If somebody's sharing something with me that's a bit tricky, I'm already trying to think, oh my goodness, what am I going to say to respond to this? But no, when you're listening actively, you are properly listening to what the person is saying. And also when coaching, it's really useful to listen to what's not being said as well. So all of those non-verbal cues, the tone of voice, the body language. And again, you know what I'm going to say, these are all soft skills that you can learn and you can improve. And I think that change management, the next on my list here, is a really interesting one, because when adopting Agile, the project manager can really add value by helping to facilitate the change that will be necessary throughout the organisation. And it's not just changes in the organisational structure in terms of who reports to who and what processes we follow. It's much more deep-rooted than that, because Agile affects the underlying culture, the values and the principles in an organisation. And that's quite deep-rooted stuff. That's quite tricky. So our Agile project manager needs to be prepared to swim against the tide a little, to ruffle a few feathers in order to effect real change deep in the organisation. Because if we can get deep into those cultural values of a business and make changes there, that's where we'll really see the benefits of Agile. It's really hard trying to be Agile in just one pocket of the organisation. It's like swimming against the tide at every turn. So affecting these deeper changes can be really beneficial. Now, every project manager, Agile or otherwise, wants to create an environment where people can be as productive as possible, where those individuals feel supported and empowered to do what they do best, where they have good relationships with the people around them, where they feel safe to ask for help and ask questions, and where roadblocks are effectively removed. And these soft skills here can really help that Agile project manager to create that kind of environment. So whichever way you look at it, I think we can safely say that the role of the project manager is evolving from that traditional project management role into something a little bit different in an Agile environment, possibly into a Scrum Master role if you're going to embrace Scrum fully, but by no means necessarily. But however it does evolve, in Agile there will be less emphasis on that detailed planning, and there's not going to be that micromanagement at the task and the resource level, and much more emphasis on individuals and interactions. And that's where these softer skills come in to help you achieve that. Okay, I am mindful of the time, so I will stop there and have a look at the questions. I can see a few have already been coming in.